You know what really gets under your skin after 10 years of marriage? It's not the cold coffee or the passive-aggressive, just buy the right brand next time comments. It's motion sensor alerts going off in your own damn house when you're 3 states away on business. That's what starts to tick the internal time bomb. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays are always painfully uneventful, like a beige wall in a dentist's office. I was in Chicago, stuck in another bland hotel room overlooking a parking garage, Zoom call drained and half-buzzed on room service whiskey. That's when I got the ping. Motion detected in the living room. At first, I figured it was the dog. Except we don't have a dog. Or a cat. Or anything living. Really, besides Natalie and her pothose plants she names like they're adopted children. So unless Fern or Mr. Vines suddenly developed legs, someone else was walking around my house at 9:43 p.m. I opened the app, expecting nothing. But sure enough, there it was, a figure, tall and definitely not my 5 feet 4 inches wife, pacing in the living room. I couldn't make out the face clearly, but this wasn't the plumber or her book club ladies sipping boxed wine. I texted Natalie, "Hey, who's at the house?" Read. No reply. That's when it got interesting. Let me back up. Natalie's a realtor. She's been one for 5 years, and she's damn good at it. The whole charm smile, heels clicking through an open house thing. People eat it up. Especially a certain type of buyer. The ones with too much money and too little personality. She told me she had evening showings that week, late ones, because some clients are busy professionals. Sounded reasonable, until I remembered we share calendars. Her events ended at 6:30 p.m. every day. Nothing after that. Not unless her iPhone calendar decided to take a sick day. Still, I told myself not to be paranoid. You know, trust, and all that jazz. But when I flew back in Friday night and pulled into the driveway, the same motion alert went off. Same time, same room, same tall shadow. Except this time, I was there. I parked down the street and walked the rest of the way. Quiet. Dark. The perfect ambience for either catching your wife in an affair or getting murdered. Honestly, either felt like a relief after that week. I came around the back and peeked through the sliding door. Empty. Living room lights were on. TV was off. No wine glasses, no shoes on the floor. Just that still, eerie sense like the air had been recently disturbed. Like someone exhaled and ran. I didn't go inside. I stood there in the dark with a lump in my throat and my fists clenched, and that was the moment I knew something was off. Like really off. The next morning, I played dumb. How were the showings last night? I asked over pancakes. Oh, quiet. Just the Wilkerson property. No bites, she said, not making eye contact as she sipped her coffee. Liar. That was when I remembered our neighbor across the street, old man Glenn, had one of those Ring doorbells. And Glenn? He's the type who records every bird, raccoon, and slightly suspicious Amazon delivery. I brought over a 6-pack that afternoon. Hey, Glenn. Funny question. You got anything on your Ring from around 9:30 last night? He didn't even ask why. Just loaded the footage onto a flash drive like it was some spy movie handoff. Later, in my home office, I played it. There she was. Natalie, in her blazer and heels, walking up to the house with a man. Same guy from the motion alert. Tall, dark-haired, confident gait like he owned the place. They didn't look like colleagues. They looked like a bad rom-com waiting to happen. She unlocked the door. He touched the small of her back. They went inside. And stayed inside. For 2 hours. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of rage. Because of the clarity. That cool, ice in your veins kind of realization that you've been made the fool in your own castle. And I'm not the type to cry in the bathtub while listening to Adele. No, I'm the type to plan. And oh, Natalie, sweetheart, you were about to experience the open house of your life. You ever sit across from someone who's smiling at you and realize they're lying with every tooth in their mouth? That was breakfast with Natalie the next morning. She made French toast like it was a peace treaty, all cinnamon and powdered sugar, as if a warm plate could overwrite Ring footage and 2 hours of betrayal. I smiled back, played the part, because if there's one thing I learned from a decade in corporate finance, it's that timing is everything. You don't drop the bomb before your assets are protected. So while she talked about showing a new condo in Briarwood that afternoon, I nodded, chewed slowly, and mentally logged into every shared account we had. Joint savings? Transferred half to my personal account. The car title? Already in my name. Mortgage? Paid up through the end of the month with a note to my lawyer to freeze the equity discussion. It's not paranoia if you've got evidence. After she left, I opened my laptop and pulled up the home security footage again. There he was. Let's call him Chad, because of course his name would be something like Chad. He had that slick real estate swagger. Probably says, let's circle back, and thinks it makes him sound smart. He was in our living room, sipping a drink I didn't pour, sitting on our couch like he paid rent. And Natalie? She wasn't just entertaining him. She was hosting, legs crossed, laughing too hard, brushing invisible lint off his sleeve like she was auditioning for the role of unfaithful wife number one in some low-budget Netflix thriller. The next step was simple, digital archaeology. Natalie's phone was off limits, locked tighter than a vault. But her laptop? Left open on the kitchen counter. Rookie move. I didn't even need to be a hacker. Just a husband with decent Google foo. I opened her browser history. Nothing too spicy at first. Zillow listings, Pinterest boards for backyard redesign. The usual suburban nonsense. But then I hit the jackpot. An email draft titled Client Follow-Up. Wilkerson showing, sent from her real estate account to drumroll. Trent.Shelby@buybuildhomes.com. Trent. That was the bastard's name. I clicked it. No attachments, no love letters. Just one line. Thursday was incredible. You really know how to close a deal. Winky face emoji. Subtle. I copied the email, screenshotted it, and sent it to myself under a folder I labeled Nat's Greatest Hits. But the goldmine wasn't the email. It was the shared Dropbox folder she forgot to log out of, the one she used to store open house videos and virtual walkthroughs. Among the files titled 3br_Kensington.mov and Briarwood_Unit 7.mp4, I found one simply labeled private_fun.mp4. Now listen, I didn't watch it. Okay, maybe 5 seconds. But that was enough. There was Natalie, in our living room, wearing the same blouse from Thursday. Only now she was giggling and panning the camera toward Chad. Sorry, Trent, as he grinned like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. I stopped the video. Not out of sadness. Out of calculation. This wasn't an affair. This was documentation. And I was about to weaponize it. Here's what you need to know about Natalie. Image is everything. She once spent 45 minutes choosing between 2 Instagram filters for a picture of avocado toast. She couldn't survive a public scandal if her life depended on it. And our neighborhood? Oh, it's the kind of place where people smile to your face and whisper behind hydrangea bushes. So I made a plan. Step 1. Schedule a surprise open house for our own home. Market it as a celebratory pitch for neighbors, friends, and family. Come see our renovations. I wrote in the invite. Drinks, snacks, memories. I even used Canva to design a flyer that looked like a listing. Natalie was tagged on Facebook. She liked the post. Step 2. Coordinate with my lawyer to have a notary present, a friendly one who could verify signatures. Because remember that mortgage Natalie said she'd help refinance last year? She had filed something without my approval. I didn't realize it until I checked the county records. She'd forged my initials to shift partial ownership. Chad, sorry again, Trent, was listed as a partner. Cute. Step 3. Dig a little deeper into Mr. Shelby's background. This is where it got juicy. Turns out, Trent had a real estate license that was under review. Something about falsified appraisal values. A little more poking, and I found a pending investigation tied to fraudulent loans. He wasn't just some sleaze. He was a liability wearing cologne. So I printed everything, neatly organized into folders. One copy for each guest. The day of the open house arrived. Natalie was radiant, thinking we were hosting some kind of midlife cocktail hour. She wore that green dress she knew I liked, poured Prosecco into fluted glasses, set out a charcuterie board that could have fed a wedding. Our friends showed up first, Tom and Lisa from next door, then her parents, then mine, then coworkers, then a few curious neighbors, the kind who never show up to HOA meetings but always peek when an ambulance parks on the street. We had about 25 people milling around our living room when I tapped my glass. Thank you all for coming, I said. Natalie and I wanted to share something special. A look into our recent real estate adventures. She smiled beside me, thinking this was about renovations. I clicked the remote. The TV screen blinked on. Footage rolled. Ring camera. Trent entering. Natalie laughing. The couch. The drink. Just enough to raise eyebrows. Gasps. Murmurs. Someone dropped a glass. Natalie went pale. Oh, and by the way, I said, holding up a manila envelope. For those wondering about the business side of things, here are the forged ownership documents my lovely wife submitted, and a quick report on our guest star, Mr. Shelby, who's currently under investigation for mortgage fraud. I passed the folders around like party favors. Natalie opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "This is an open house, after all," I said. "Just thought you should all see what's really been going on behind closed doors." Silence. Except for Glenn, who muttered, "Damn." Natalie stormed out. Some followed her. Some stayed. A few clapped. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt precise, like a scalpel in the hand of a surgeon removing rot. And it wasn't over yet, because what Natalie didn't know was that the forged documents. I had filed a complaint, and the county was already moving. She'd be out of that house before the next open house sign ever hit the lawn. Here's something nobody tells you about revenge. The moment after you drop the hammer isn't triumphant. It's quiet. Too quiet. Like the air's been sucked out of the room, and even your heartbeat is trying not to make noise. Natalie left the open house with mascara streaked down her cheeks and her heels clacking on the driveway like the world owed her an apology. She didn't say a word. Not to me. Not to her parents. Not even to her best friend, Sherry, who stood in the corner holding a Prosecco flute like it was a live grenade. I didn't chase her. I just poured myself a fresh glass and toasted to the silence. Later that evening, after the last of the guests had awkwardly shuffled out, some of them refusing eye contact, others giving me sympathetic claps on the shoulder like I'd just survived a funeral, I sat on our sectional couch alone and watched that ring footage one more time. Not for pain, for precision. I wanted to remember how easily she smiled for someone else in our home. How natural it looked. Like she'd rehearsed it. The charade was over. Now came the cleanup. First thing Monday, I got a call from the county recorder's office. The complaint I'd filed, the one with notarized documents showing that Natalie had transferred partial ownership of our house to one Trent Shelby, was being taken seriously. Turns out, people get real jumpy when the word fraud is attached to anything with a property title. They asked for statements. I handed over copies of everything. The forged signature pages, the metadata from the digital documents showing they were altered on her laptop, the email Natalie sent confirming client access, and, of course, the guest list from the open house. Witnesses. It helps when your revenge has RSVPs. Natalie tried to call me Tuesday morning. I didn't pick up. She texted, "Can we talk?" I texted back, "Lawyers only." Because here's the thing. Once you cross the Rubicon of public humiliation and legal consequences, there's no walking it back. There's no teary-eyed confession or half-hearted apology that makes you say, "Yeah, okay, maybe we patch this up over brunch." No, you burn the bridge and salt the ashes. By Wednesday, her parents reached out. Her dad, of all people, left a voicemail that went something like, "Brian, listen, whatever this is, can't we handle it privately? You're making it hard for Natalie to work right now." Right. I'm making it hard for her to work. Not the part where she had trysts in the house and filed fraudulent documents under my name. No, the real problem was that I had the nerve to respond with consequences. I didn't respond. Instead, I met with my attorney again and we filed for petition. Fancy legal word for, I want her out of the house, and I can prove she has no legal claim to stay. We attached the forged documents, the complaint, the investigation notice about Trent, and, the cherry on top, a letter from the Real Estate Licensing Board. Trent was under formal review. Turns out, you can't fake property valuations to secure inflated commissions, especially not while also posing as someone's buyer/lover. The timing was delicious. On Friday, Natalie showed up at the house. I saw her from the upstairs window. She parked her SUV like she still lived there, walked up to the door, and knocked. Hard. 3 times. I ignored it. She knocked again. Then she started with the texts. "I need to get some of my things. You can't just lock me out. I still live there." And finally, "Brian, don't do this. Please." That last one made me pause. Not out of mercy, just curiosity. I wondered which version of Natalie had sent it. The polished realtor with teeth like porcelain? The giggling homewrecker from the ring footage? Or the woman who, at some point, used to fall asleep with her head on my chest and trace circles on my skin like it meant something? I never got my answer, because I didn't open the door. I waited until Monday and filed for exclusive occupancy. With the pending investigation into Trent and the forgery allegations, it was granted on the spot. She was barred from the property, not evicted, technically, just denied access. Semantics, really. To me, it meant she could watch from the sidewalk while movers packed up her designer bags and framed real estate awards into boxes. But here's where things took a sharp left turn. I was going through the mail one night, the boring kind, credit card offers and HOA newsletters, when I spotted an envelope addressed to me. No return address. Handwritten. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. One sentence. You might want to know who Trent really is. No name. No context. Just that. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe the moon landing was faked or that pigeons are government spies. But when someone goes through the trouble to anonymously tip you off, and they're right, you pay attention. So I dug deeper. The address Trent had listed on one of the property filings? It didn't belong to him. It was a P.O. box in a strip mall across town. His business address? Same story. His license number, once pulled from the state board site, showed discrepancies with public profiles. He was listed as Trent Shelby on some, T. Marcus on others. Identity laundering. This wasn't just a sleazeball realtor. This guy had a history, multiple aliases, pending litigation in another state, and a bankruptcy case that was conveniently sealed. I printed it all out. Now, you might think I'd hand that over to Natalie and say, see, he was conning you too. But I didn't. I sent it to her firm, anonymously, and watched the fallout from a distance. 3 days later, Natalie was removed from her team's online bio. By the end of the week, her LinkedIn was deactivated. A friend of a friend told me she was on leave. Sure she was. Her image, the carefully curated, filter-heavy realtor queen of the neighborhood, was cracking. And beneath it wasn't just betrayal. It was desperation. Because now, Natalie wasn't just the woman who cheated. She was the woman who forged documents, shacked up with a con artist, and got herself blacklisted from the only career she ever had. But there was one more twist. And it hit me the next morning when I got another motion alert. This time, not from my house. From Glenn's. He'd sent me a clip. Trent. At his front door. Looking panicked. Ringing the bell. Checking over his shoulder. Like a man who knew the wolves were coming. Because when con men run out of victims, they start looking for exits. And Natalie? She was fresh out of doors to knock on. By the time Glenn sent me that ring footage, I had already assumed Trent was a ghost. The kind of guy who shows up in a blur of cologne and charm, ruins lives, then vanishes into a different zip code with a new haircut and an alias from a soap opera. But there he was. Real. Nervous. On Glenn's doorstep, no less. Glenn texted me one line with the video. You might want to see what the con man's up to now. I watched it on repeat. Trent pacing, glancing back at his car, a leased Range Rover, of course, like someone was chasing him. He rang the bell 3 times, then banged on the door like he was owed something. Glenn didn't answer. Smart man. Instead, he let his doorbell camera do the talking. That's when it hit me. Trent wasn't just in trouble with me. He was in trouble, period. I called a contact at a local title company, a guy I once played golf with, who owed me a favor after I helped him sort out a tax mess over a long weekend and some very creative spreadsheet work. I asked him to look into Trent's past closings, especially any under the name T. Shelby or T. Marcus. What he found was better than anything I could have hoped for. Trent had a trail. Not just aliases, but forged closing documents, misrepresented appraisals, and even one property that had 3 different owners on paper, all listed as verified buyers, all with wildly different signatures, none of them legit. This guy wasn't just a player. He was a ticking legal time bomb. And Natalie? She had hitched her entire escape plan to his wagon. So I decided to turn the volume up a notch. I didn't go to the police. Not yet. I went to the homeowners association. Now, in a gated community like ours, the HOA is basically a small government run by bored retirees with too much time and too many laminated policies. But they take neighborhood image very seriously, and property fraud? That's their version of national security. I emailed them anonymously. Attached the forged ownership docs Natalie filed. Mentioned a concerned resident who discovered potential mortgage fraud involving a local realtor and an unlicensed buyer with multiple identities. I CC'd the head of the ethics committee. I knew her well. She once fined me $75 for leaving my garbage bins out 12 hours too long. 24 hours later, Natalie's name was removed from the HOA directory. Her key code access was revoked. She was persona non grata. But this story wasn't just about Natalie anymore. This was about the principal. Because I wasn't the only person Trent had screwed over. I started reaching out, carefully, to others from the title report. One woman, Marlene, told me she paid $18,000 in earnest money for a home that was never legally listed. Another guy, Rick, had to sue after Trent promised a short sale property that turned out to be owned by a bank that didn't even know it was being sold. The man was a scam artist, playing Monopoly with real houses. I gathered everything. Names, emails, statements, and I sent the whole package, anonymously, to the district attorney's office. 3 days later, Trent disappeared. His number was disconnected. His website redirected to a blank Squarespace landing page. His real estate license showed suspended pending investigation. Natalie must have felt it first. The vacuum of attention. The silence where his lies used to be. That's when she started emailing me. Subject line. Please. Then, we need to talk. Then, I didn't know what he was. Then, you have no idea what he did to me. Oh, Natalie. I ignored every message. Not because I was heartless, but because I knew her tells. She was always more convincing when she was scared. And she was terrified now. But the real kicker came in an email she accidentally CC'd to me. A reply to her firm's legal department. Her final appeal against her termination. She had claimed unawareness of Mr. Shelby's background and no involvement in any document alterations. She called herself a victim of manipulation. And then, bless her, she attached the wrong file. Instead of her formal letter, she included a screenshot of a text conversation between her and Trent from 3 weeks before the open house. He wrote, I can get you on the deed. Just fake his initials. Use DocuSign. Most people don't even check. She replied, will it hold up if he challenges it? He wrote, long enough to cash out. That was the nail in her professional coffin. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it. I just filed it away under a folder I called closure. Because at that point, she'd done all the work for me. She'd not only burned the bridge, she'd danced on the ashes with a man who used a fake name, a fake license, and a fake address. And when the mask slipped, she realized too late that she wasn't the partner in the con. She was just another mark. But here's where things took an unexpected turn. One night, I got home to find a small envelope tucked into the wreath on my front door. No address. Just my name in her handwriting. I stood on the porch for a minute before opening it. Inside, a single key. Our house key. With a note. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. N. No sob story. No explanations. Just a surrender. I turned the key over in my hand, wondering how many locks it had opened. How many nights she slipped it into the door with a lie on her tongue. Then I threw it in the trash. Because Natalie wasn't the only one who had underestimated me. She thought I was the kind of man who would stew. Who'd yell. Maybe cry. Maybe grovel. She thought I'd beg to understand why. But I wasn't looking for closure. I was looking for control. And now, I had it. The house was mine. Her career was done. Trent was a fugitive in a too-shiny car with a GPS tracker probably still registered in someone else's name. And Natalie? Natalie was back to square one. No job. No boyfriend. No house key. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because there was one more thing I hadn't revealed. One last card I held. If revenge were a game, most people play checkers. They move fast, act emotional, and end up flipping the board when things don't go their way. Me? I play chess. Long game. Quiet. Calculated. And by the time Natalie handed over that key, I had already placed my queen 3 moves from checkmate. But before I tell you about that final play, let me rewind a little. Remember that folder I called closure? It wasn't just a digital graveyard of text threads and misfiled regrets. It was a blueprint. One I'd been quietly updating, organizing, expanding. See, when someone lies to your face in your own house, it changes something. You stop assuming. You start recording. The week after Natalie's last pathetic email, the sorry key envelope, I got a certified letter from her attorney. She was requesting mediation. Apparently, after losing her job, her reputation, and her sugar-coated fantasy with the disappearing Trent, she realized she had no way to pay for her half of the mortgage. The same mortgage, mind you, that she had fraudulently altered in an attempt to swindle me out of ownership. Now she wanted to come to an understanding. The audacity was almost admirable. Her lawyer proposed a 50-50 split of the home equity, considering the marital contributions of both parties. They even highlighted her sacrifices during our marriage, the career shifts, the stress of managing her own business, and of course, the emotional damage caused by recent events. Emotional damage. That one made me laugh. I met with my attorney and slid the folder across the table. They want mediation, I said. Let's give them something to talk about. She opened it, saw the texts, the fake documents, the licensing board rulings, and smiled like a shark who just saw a limping seal. I think we're going to be just fine, she said. We filed for a formal asset division hearing. I submitted evidence proving forged signatures, misrepresented property intent, attempted financial deception, and accessory behavior to a real estate scam under investigation. We argued that her behavior constituted not just breach of trust, but willful fraud. But here's where it gets good. See, Natalie thought the worst thing I could do was expose the affair. She was wrong. The worst thing I could do, and did, was weaponize her ambition. Before she ever brought Trent into our lives, Natalie had been pushing to get her broker's license. She wanted her own office, her own name on the door. She applied last year, even used my contacts to get letters of recommendation. One of those letters came from a man named Gerald Hughes, a district rep for a prominent real estate firm with statewide reach. Gerald liked me, played racquetball with him twice a month. His daughter went to school with my niece. When Natalie first asked for the letter, I called in a favor. Gerald vouched for her, took a risk. So after the open house incident, after the fake documents, the ring footage, the whispers through the grapevine, guess who else took a hit? Gerald. He was called before his board, asked why he had recommended someone who ended up on a fraud complaint list with an alleged criminal. His reputation? Blemished. Not destroyed, but definitely bruised. And Gerald? He didn't take that kindly. So when I showed him the full report, the emails, the texts, the timeline, he asked me one question. What do you want me to do? I told him, nothing illegal. Just don't protect her anymore. He didn't. And 3 weeks later, Natalie's license was revoked. Not suspended. Revoked. The final nail in her career. No reinstatement. No appeals. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Wrong. Because Natalie still had one lifeline. The half of our house she thought she could negotiate for. She had no job, no income, and, thanks to the HOA, no place to stay in the neighborhood. I knew she was crashing with a friend across town. I knew she was using a prepaid phone because she was locked out of the family plan. I knew she was trying to borrow money from relatives who didn't want their names anywhere near hers. But I didn't say a word. I just waited. Then, on a Thursday, funny how everything seems to happen on Thursdays, my lawyer called me. She's agreed to walk away from the house, she said. No mediation, no demands. Just a signed statement forfeiting all claims to the property in exchange for one thing, a non-disclosure agreement. Yep, she didn't want her name circulating in public records tied to mortgage fraud and real estate license revocation. She didn't want the other realtors, the neighbors, the moms at yoga class to Google her name and find out who she really was. She was willing to give up the house just to protect the illusion. I signed, and just like that, it was over. But not quite. Because remember when I said there was one more card I hadn't revealed? Let me introduce you to Phase 2. 6 months before all this started, before Trent, before the forged docs, before I even knew what betrayal smelled like, Natalie had convinced me to invest in a property out of state. A vacation rental, she called it. Said she'd found a great deal through a colleague, and all I had to do was wire $30,000 to a firm she vetted. I did, because back then, I still believed her. Turns out, the firm didn't exist. The LLC was real. The people were not. And the money? Gone. Or so I thought. But during my deep dive into Trent's paper trail, I found something odd. A wire transfer from a firm with that same LLC name to a different account. An account under Natalie's maiden name. She'd laundered my money through a shell. I gave it to a fake company. She took it out the other side. I confronted her once. Briefly. Back when we still shared breakfast and bank accounts. Hey, didn't we invest in that property in Colorado? What happened with that? Oh, she said, sipping her coffee. They pulled the listing. Market shifted. I'll get the refund next quarter. She never did. So I filed a civil claim. Claimed intentional misrepresentation. Fraud. Theft. She was served at her friend's house, in front of a yoga instructor and 2 neighbors she used to brag about her listings to. Her face, I was told, was priceless. The claim isn't about the money anymore. It's not about getting the 30 grand back, though I wouldn't say no to it. It's about the documentation, the record, the receipts, the final chapter. Because when you betray someone who trusted you, you don't get to walk away with nothing more than a bad memory. You get a paper trail, a legacy. And Natalie? Hers was just getting printed. It's funny how quiet victory feels. You always expect music, fireworks, a movie moment where you walk away from an explosion without looking back. But when you finally win, I mean really win, it doesn't sound like anything. Just your own breathing, a soft click of a closing door, the distant hum of a refrigerator that used to hold groceries for two. After I filed the civil claim for the 30 grand she siphoned through that fake LLC, I thought Natalie might finally disappear, slip back into whatever corner of the world she crawled out of before she met Trent. But no, turns out narcissism doesn't dissolve. It just festers. She contested the claim, filed a response through a new lawyer, not the same one from before. That guy, the first one, bailed when she tried to pay his retainer with a maxed-out credit card and a sob story about unfair treatment. This one was younger, cockier, probably thought this was some big wrongful debt injustice he could turn into a name-making case. He was wrong. Because while Natalie had the story, a good one, I'll admit, filled with buzzwords like duress and manipulation, I had the evidence. Bank statements, screenshots, transfer logs, and one final gem, a recorded phone call, legally acquired. See, in our state, single-party consent laws mean if I'm on the call, I can record it. And I did. Months ago, back when she still thought we were partners. On that call, she talked about moving the funds quickly so it doesn't show up until after we close. She used the phrase, keep it off Brian's radar. She even laughed, a light, casual laugh, as she said, I mean, what he doesn't know can't hurt him. That laugh is now part of court record. Her new lawyer folded like a lawn chair. A settlement offer came through the next day. She'd pay back $20,000 over 5 years, monthly installments, no interest, as long as I signed a confidentiality agreement. I declined, told them we'd see them in court. Not because I need the money. Let's be clear on that. But because I want the record. I want the documentation. I want the permanent, searchable, public understanding that Natalie Lawrence, formerly Natalie Ellis, committed fraud against her own husband, falsified a property transfer, and misappropriated investment funds. I want the future to remember. A week later, I got a letter from her parents. Handwritten. Said they were sorry. Said they didn't know the full story. That Natalie had lost her way. That they hoped, if nothing else, I'd find happiness and leave the past behind. I read it twice. Folded it. Set it on fire in the backyard fire pit. I don't keep relics from people who stood by her while she lied through her teeth and brought strangers into our home. Speaking of which, the house. It's mine now. Fully. The title was officially cleared last month. Her forged documents nullified, the fraudulent deed transfer erased from public record. My name stands alone. Clean. Right where it belongs. And funny enough, the open house footage? It got around. I didn't post it. But someone did. Probably Glenn. Or maybe one of the guests who thought it was too good not to share. It started as a whisper in the community Facebook group. Then it made the rounds in realtor circles. Then it got picked up by some YouTube drama channel with 1 million followers that overlays dramatic piano music and narrates it like true crime. Cheating realtor gets caught at her own open house. Last I checked, it had 2.3 million views. Natalie's face is blurred, technically. But if you know, you know. And now, everyone knows. So what happened to her? The usual, I think. She tried to rebuild. Moved 2 towns over. Works at some furniture showroom now, pushing mid-tier couches to newlyweds who don't know the difference between oak and MDF. She's not licensed anymore. Can't work in real estate. Can't use any of her old references. She started using her maiden name again. Even updated her social media to reflect it. New headshots, new bio, same delusional captions about growth and resilience. But the comments? Yeah, people remember. Didn't you get caught faking signatures? Weren't you the woman in the open house video? I don't reply. I don't follow her. I just know. Like you always know where the crack is in the foundation once you've seen it. As for Trent, still vanished. Last I heard, he was seen in Arizona, trying to sell investment properties on behalf of a company that doesn't have a website. No charges filed yet, but I keep tabs. I've got a Google alert set up for his alias. Sooner or later, he'll slip. Guys like that always do. And when he does, well, let's just say I'll make sure the DA gets another folder. But let's talk about me, because this isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a story of what comes after. I rebuilt the living room. New paint. New couch. Got rid of the one they used. I kept the Ring cameras. Not for paranoia. For perspective. Because every time I walk into my home now, and I see the clean feed, the quiet house, the absence of shadows that don't belong, I'm reminded that sometimes peace doesn't come from forgiveness. Sometimes peace comes from winning. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't break down on the kitchen floor. I watched. I recorded. I dismantled everything they built, piece by piece, signature by signature, smile by smile, until all that was left was the truth. And now, I sleep just fine. Because Natalie thought she was playing a game. But I built the board. And when it was time to flip it, she realized too late. She was never the one holding the pieces. The end. Subscribe to the channel